Session review.
Okay, session review, back at it again. Oh, you can see that I'm so ready for this, and that's why it's time to get into it. So, first things first, we started with a wonderful and nice puzzle. The team found some tiles around this nice, wonderful garden that was past the door, which very clearly on it stated that Atlantis was real upon finding some of these rocks and stones. They eventually accumulated a fair bit. Mostly Diogen was running up and picking them all up as he felt he was being useful by doing so. And the voices that the party had been hearing from the tunnel that they were in previously are accumulating in this note, which lays inside the gazebo at the end. Diogen closes his eyes sillily and kind of walks around to sense if there's anything negative in there, and eventually ends up finding the note. And after touching it and feeling nothing negative besides the onslaught of the voices screaming to him, he eventually opens his eyes, drops the note, and realizes on it that it reads, "The lost city will only reveal itself to a man who has proven their knowledge of the sea. Signed, Captain Giuseppe." The rest of the team kind of fumbles around for a little bit after this knowledge as Diogen screams it, and then the Straw Hat Pirates reemerge. Luffy plunges himself into the gazebo with Diogen, and they kind of try to figure out what's going on, but they're both kind of confused. Cruel Wrench uses magic stones on the tablet to help levitate them to the main area, where Diogen eventually finds a, um, essentially 9 tile based map or indent where the tiles could potentially be put to help create a map. And the team walks over to create this map. So Nami gets working on the map. As people look around, they find that there's some symbols on the wall showing the sun and the moon, potentially indicating that there is some importance with the time shifts. And then also they find on the back of the letter that the crew can only be found once the moon meets the sky, which indicates that they can only be found at nighttime. Nami, on their way back, notes that she is, upset that everyone that she knows has been essentially taken away from her forcibly, as Alabasta has been devastated and this was her homeland. Inu comforts her, and then Frankie kind of just walks in because I had to have him talk yet this session. We get to the boat where we have deep connections and dinner, so they board the boat. Immediately, Nami gets to navigating based on the little they have, and Inu rolls a nat 20 to prove that he knows how to navigate a boat very well. And he helps and he explains to exactly where they should go. Nami is flustered about how good he is, but she confirms the heading, and Luffy gets us on our way. Nami and Inu express some words about this kind of phenomenon. She is unaware that he was such a good navigator. As well, Frankie and Zoro fight over whose turn it is to cook, but Frankie eventually, lets Zoro know that it truly is his time and he can't get out of it again. So he sadly goes to cook. Bunny recognizes that Zoro is sad, and after Diogen gives him a role of verdant dream, Bunny decides to cook for him, as long as he will help him get all the ingredients and the place to cook. So they go on a cooking spree, and Frankie goes up to Cruel Wrench and starts to ask more about PepsiCo. Frankie is specifically interested in the contract and decides to read the contract and tell PepsiCo of the way. Cruel Wrench is able, or tell Cruel Wrench of the contract itself. This does help Cruel Wrench in a way that Cruel Wrench has not actually ever read the contract, but Cruel Wrench now knows that if they signed the third phase of the contract, they're going to be fully and wholly giving themselves up to PepsiCo. So they will have no control. There will no longer be any need to save any kind of control. PepsiCo can simply take control whenever they see fit, and it will not be returned until they potentially see that fit. So it is a little bit more scary than the one we had before, although the one we had before is pretty much that. But if you guys were not there to save Cruel Wrench, then Cruel Wrench would have just been taking control of forever. So very interesting way there. Either way, they heard about what the third clause was, and finally, after that conversation, Frankie does think a little bit maybe about joining Cruel Wrench on the path, but they would need some kind of bond to make sure they know they could be working together truthfully. Otherwise, Luffy anchors the ship. It's in the wrong spot. Nami and Inu notice, although they don't say anything. Bunny finishes the hearty meal with the Nen-based thing, which gives everyone some temp HP. And then finally, Nami says to Inu, then Nami and Inu decide to go downstairs to get a dining room table for more people, as generally the party kind of just eats separately, as they don't normally spend so much time together as when the group is there. So they go down to get the table. Nami and Inu are down here alone getting this table, and Nami goes up to Inu and essentially point blank states that she thinks he's being a little deceitful and not explaining his true feelings for her, and she just comes out and says that she has feelings for him. Upon this, I don't remember exactly how the interaction went, but Inu then says, "Oh, well, if you were to use the teleportation helm, I could go and show you the world." And then Nami says, "Oh, it sounds like a wonderful thing, so I can come and visit you whenever I want." So she is able to get the teleportation helm for herself, as Inu does reluctantly give it to her, which I do believe is in character. And if you don't have inspiration, you can get inspiration for giving away an item, as I do think Inu would simp and just give her the helmet. Regardless, though, she's a little fussed after getting it, a little confused, and she says, "Okay, we just have to go back to the party." So we then go upstairs where dinner occurs. So Diogen decides for 3 minutes to tell Luffy about the story of Atlanta, a hidden city that had an economy that was booming and then decided to, or that was failing, and then it decided to move itself into an island so that it could become a booming economy. And then it was so booming that it became so heavy that the island sank, and now it is in the middle of the water. So Atlanta is now the lost city of Atlanta. Blah 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 blah. That's a great conversation they have. Luffy listens without asking any questions, intently dumbfounded. Bunny is training Zoro in cooking as Zoro requests to be trained. He essentially pleads that he knows nothing and that he very much appreciates everything they do. So he plays some Fruit Ninja as Zoro cuts up some fruits. This goes on until eventually Inu is brought in to also cut up some fruits. He does far better than Zoro. It takes Zoro 6 tries. It takes Inu only 2. So Inu does show us a little bit of prowess there that he might be cooking, but there is still some conflict between them, and they are planning to do a cook-off, so we can definitely see how that goes. Now, next, um, finally, as Cruel Wrench and Frankie continue talking, Frankie actually asks Cruel Wrench if Cruel Wrench knows if they are PepsiCo's first ever human contact, as demons generally have a first human contact, which is a far deeper connection and they share more power with. And honestly, it seems that Cruel Wrench does not know, but this might be something to look into further. Also, Inu and Nami discuss what they want to do with what happened. Obviously, they're not in the correct direction, so Nami's a little concerned about the upcoming battle, and she doesn't know what the best strategy is. Inu assures her, though, that we should stay out here until nightfall and then maybe go out to find our people. And Inu assures her that no matter what, they will be fine and get through this together. After dinner, everything's put away. People go to their own areas. The only conversation we really have is Nami goes to her room to return to her helmet, in which case Inu comes in to visit her. He sees a very nice, luscious room made by Frankie, which has a waterside view and a bed that can see out all the way to the ocean, to even the sunrise. And she is sitting there on her bed, intently focusing on the helmet. Eventually, though, Inu comes over to her on her bed after complimenting her maps, and then he lies down to her as she's attuning, hears about how she hopes to return to the people of Alabasta, and then they end up kissing. Although, right as the kissing occurs, it is stopped short as Luffy starts immediately moving the ship. Those above deck have been hearing pirate shanties occurring after feeling a, Nen surge floating up from the bottom. Seemingly, the pirate ship was underwater and then floated to the top of the surface and came out. And now they hear pirate shanties going in that way. And as we make our way, Nami and Inu get to the deck. Everyone's on the deck, and they see as a pirate ship is circling a electric Nen vortex as a man screams out, "I, Captain Barbosa, will not be stopped by ye meddling fools." And thus, we ended our session. The fight with Captain Barbosa will begin next time. So thank you all for coming. Very appreciative. And I hope that you all can have a great time trying to figure out the answer of where is the other captain.